What's up, guys? Welcome to the Coach Z Athletics podcast. We come to you every single week with tips and tricks in regards to you, the high school student athlete, as well as you parents, to help you in the process, like I said, of this recruiting thing. Coach Z Athletics in association with Kelly College Consulting, coming all the way from Dallas, Texas, man. And we're super excited. We got a real good topic for you guys today. And like I always like to say, we'll start it off with Coach Kelly. What's going on?
Not much, man. Just enjoying it. I'm enjoying myself down here in Dallas. Weather's a little bit cooler today, so it's like 95 instead of 102. So we get a little break from the heat, but still enjoying myself down here in Dallas, man. Really getting ready, getting amped up, ramped up for the new school year. Had a presentation this past Saturday. Looking forward to a big September. Got a lot of districts in a lot of different places, California, Florida, Colorado, Missouri, Illinois, and Texas. So really looking to move around and be active this fall.
Love it. Love it. So let's dive right into it. So listen, so we've got a real good topic for you today, and it obviously applies to the time period right now. As we're recording this at the end of August. A lot of these young student athletes, or you young student athletes, are getting started with your season as well as the school year. I really wanted to get home. I wanted to hammer home what you should do right now, young student athletes, in your recruitment. So we're going to assume that a lot of you are just kind of trying to figure out this recruiting process, and you're kind of getting started. And we want to give you a little bit of an action plan and give you some tips and ideas of what to do. So for me personally, I mean, I think that one of the best things for you young student athletes to do, if you haven't been to Showcase, haven't been to camps, maybe your social media isn't dialed in with the profiles, you want to make sure and get that started right here, right now. That's the easiest thing to do. You can do that sitting on your couch. You can do that while you're playing video games for the most part, right? Making sure that you get your social media dialed in as best as possible. The profiles, like I said, making sure that your name is on there, graduation, highlights, all the essential needs for when a college coach will come across your information, and making sure that you are pinning your highlights onto your timelines, making sure to clean all that up, get rid of all those followers that you shouldn't be following, and go follow the best people that you are going to need to be connected to with this recruiting process. Another thing is making sure that you start getting used to emails. And we talk about this a bunch throughout this whole, this recruiting process, and making sure that you understand that. I would just say this. I would say one of the best things to do and make it easy as possible with these emails is create a template. You can go to OpenAI, just creating a template. You obviously want to personalize it as best as possible, but start getting in the concept of, setting up, good template. And then just start finding those schools that you're interested in going and playing for, and then just start hammering them home. Like yesterday, I just mentioned, it's like, if you're sending out hundreds of emails, you're not sending out enough. You're going to be putting commas in everything you do when you're sending out DMs as well as emails. So firing those off as much as you possibly can. And then, these first 3 games, I tell, young student athletes, especially in the sport of football, it's going to be applied obviously to, other sports within this fall time. But within the first few games, man, you guys got to make sure and have your best games, really set it off. It's kind of like a sprinter coming out of the blocks. You want to make sure and get it out there as best as possible. Here's one of my biggest pet peeves, as a recruiting coordinator, that would just burn me alive, was that, when student athletes would DM me or would email me or would just text me if they had my number, right? It's just generic. I don't like generic. I like it being personalized. I understand you want to say hi, coach, or whatever. I understand, but you make it, a lot of kids are doing that because they're just sending that out as a thing. So making sure that you guys are personalizing it as best as possible to get that interest. And also with this process, making sure that you understand that you want to get, as we call in the coaching world, or it's a saying in the coaching world, you want to get 1% better every day. Because young student athletes don't understand there is a recruit timeline. So a lot of these schools won't sit there and spend all day on you, right? Because they can't, a lot of them, especially at the highest levels. So you understand your recruit timeline. So when you're dealing with the recruiting process, it's always good at the beginning to just send out a lot and get it out, get that 1% better from your perspective, and feel like you're doing something, because, coaches will follow you, and that's a W every single time you run through this process. So that, that's one of the best things that I tell young student athletes when I do seminars, and I'm sure, Coach, you do the same thing, an action plan, what to do right here, right now. And it's never really too late necessarily, at least right now, because we do have a lot of options throughout the country, whether it's D2, D3, NAIAs, JUCOs, all these different sports. And so with I'll land it with this, but with the whole system, there's a recruit timeline. So sometimes they just can't recruit you. So you just want to make sure and put it out there so they have it, because you got to assume that these coaches do not know you exist. So Coach Kelly, I'm going to pass it off to you.
Well, absolutely. I think those are a lot of good points there, Coach Z. And what I'll say is there's probably 3 or 4 things I would suggest, like currently, if you're a student athlete and you're entering your senior year, I would think a couple of things you have to do is, I think, first of all, you need to have a conversation with your coach. Have a conversation with your high school coach. Just let them know, hey, coach, I really, have aspirations of playing at the college level. What level do you think I can play at? What are some things you think I need to do and focus on this year to be able to put myself in position to be a college student athlete? So that's the first thing I would think you need to do, is have a conversation with your high school coach. Or, for example, if you're not playing football, you're, say you're playing volleyball, you're a girls volleyball player, or whatever the case is, you're in another fall sport, cross country, whatever the case may be. Still have a conversation with your high school coach just to kind of to see how much they can help you, to see what connections they have, and to ask them what you can do to put yourself in the best position to be recruited. That's the first thing. Second thing, as a student athlete, you always need to have a transcript handy. So you need to go have a meeting with your high school counselor for a couple reasons. Number one, you need to get a transcript, because any coach that's recruiting you, they're going to ask you for a transcript. They need to see your grades to make sure that you're academically capable of being able to perform at their school academically. So have your transcript. But when you meet with your counselor, also make sure you have your core courses in order. Make sure that you're on track to graduate. All right, make sure you set a fall test date. If you haven't taken the ACT or SAT already, set a date in the fall to take it, whether it's October or November, whatever the case may be. So number one, have a meeting with your coach, have a meeting with your high school counselor to make sure your academics are in order. Also, and Coach Z brought this up, make sure your social media is in order. Get your Twitter, Instagram, whatever the case is, make sure that's in order. Make sure it's set up properly. Make sure you have a link to your schedule. Make sure you have a link to your film within your social media, whether it's Twitter or Instagram, whatever the case it is. All right, so those are 3 things you need to do. All right, and another thing that you need to do is you need to get your film in order. All right. And Coach talked about that a little bit as well, is getting your film in order, meaning you need to, now I know you obviously are starting the season, but you should have your junior year film ready, because coaches are going to, ask for that. And then as you play your first game, second game, third game, start adding new film for this year. So those, I think, are 4 things that you really need to focus on right now if you're a senior student athlete, no matter what sport it is you play. You need to reach out to your coach, have a conversation about your desire to play at the college level. Ask them their opinion about what level you can play at. You need to have a meeting with your counselor. All right. You need to make sure that you are on track to graduate, that you have your core courses in line, and that you set up a fall test date. Number 3, you need to get your social media accounts in order. All right. You need to get your social media account. Make sure that that's on point and ready to go. And then finally, you need to start working on your film. All right. Now, I understand it's the beginning of the season. You may not have film yet, but you need to start being aware and cognizant of that, because you can't get recruited without film. All right. So that's something that has to be on point, and it's absolutely necessary to the recruiting process.
So I want you to dig a little bit more into what the core classes were, because you were mentioning about the core, the core classes. And it's really important, with the NCAA eligibility center. If you guys haven't been there, you definitely got to go get that yesterday, right? You can either Google it, go to ncaa.org, but making sure you dial that in and learning more about the NCAA, the formerly known as the Clearinghouse, but the Eligibility Center. And Coach, talk real quick about the core classes.
Absolutely. Well, in order to be eligible to compete as a freshman at the NCAA level, you have to have 16 core courses, right? And core courses are not PE. They're not basket weaving. They're not art. Your core courses are your math, your science, your English, and your social science. They call it social science, which is history. So the best way to look at it is if you take 4 core courses every year, you'll have your 16 core courses. So if you take 1 math, 1 English, 1 science, and 1 history course each year, you'll have your 16 core courses. Now, keep in mind, you have to have a 2.3 core course GPA to be eligible to compete at the Division I level. You have to have a 2.2 core course GPA to be eligible to compete at the Division II level. So a lot of times coaches will ask you, what's your GPA? And a lot of people say, oh, it's like 3.2. That's probably your overall GPA. Typically, your core course GPA will be a little bit lower than what your actual GPA is. So it's very important to not only know your regular GPA, but to know your core course GPA. And also keep in mind, honors courses don't give you more credit when it comes to your core course GPA. So I know everyone's aware that if you take a regular class, you get 4 points for A. If you take an honors class, you get 5 points for an A. That's the grading scale, right? It doesn't work like that for your core course GPA. If you're taking, whether you're taking Algebra 1 or Algebra 1 honors, you're still getting the same amount of credit for it as it pertains to your core course GPA and your NCAA eligibility. So that's one big misconception, that people think honors classes, AP classes have a more of an influence or carry more weight as far as your NCAA core course GPA. It doesn't. All right. So just keep that in mind. And one other important thing, there's a 10-7 rule. All right, there's a 10-7 rule, and the 10-7 rule means that you have to take at least 10 of your 16 core courses prior to the start of your senior year. So that means in your first 3 years, freshman, sophomore, junior year, you have to take at least 10 of your 16 core courses. The reason this rule is in place is because you can't just do poorly freshman, sophomore, junior year, and then say senior year, I'm going to load up on classes and just get straight A's and then just become eligible because I did good senior year, even though I did poorly the first 3 years. You absolutely cannot do that. Yeah. You have to start off day one when you step on a high school campus, paying close attention and being very serious about your academics, because you can't just do poorly, then load up senior year. So that's just kind of an overview of the academic eligibility. And also keep in mind, the test, you do not have to take the ACT or SAT to be academically eligible to compete at the NCAA. However, I encourage all student athletes to take the ACT or SAT, because ACT and SAT scores can and will be used as criteria for academic scholarships and for outside scholarships, and sometimes for admissions requirements. So even though it's not a requirement for athletic eligibility, I still encourage every student athlete to still take the ACT or SAT at least once.
Yeah, no, and those are all real fantastic points. And so we'll land the plane here, but listen, your action plan is this: go get your NCAA eligibility center dialed in right away. Most importantly, go talk to your counselor right here, right now. So throughout the country, right, some of you young student athletes, you're in week 2, week 3 of your season. So make sure and do it right now. You guys can't wait. Got to go make sure and make it happen right here, right now. Dial in your social media, get your templates ready to go for your emails, and then just start reaching out to coaches. And then most importantly, just don't get discouraged in the process, because sometimes, based on the recruiting timeline, your coaches they can't reach out to you. There's just only so much they can do at certain times of the year. There is a recruiting timeline. You can go on ncaa.org and give you a little bit more of an idea of what we're talking about with the process, but it doesn't really matter at this point. Just do what we were just telling you, and get this ball rolling. And
I want to add something, Coach, before you go. Yeah, I want to add 2 quick things. Number one, for any senior, the worst thing you can do is pay attention to other people's recruiting process. All right. So I know people are going to see kids visiting schools, kids getting offered scholarships, kids committing, kids, all of this stuff. And people are like, oh, I'm not committing, I'm not visiting, I don't have any scholarship offers, and they're starting to panic. All right. Do not pay attention to anybody else's recruiting process, because there's some kids that are offered their first Division I scholarship freshman year in high school. There's some kids that are offered their first Division I scholarship after they graduate senior year. You know what I mean? So you can be offered a scholarship at any point in the process. So don't be concerned, or don't be looking at other people's process and their situation thinking, why is that not happening to me? What am I doing? All right, because everyone's process is different, number one. And then also just make sure that you understand the recruiting process has been pushed back a little bit. All right. So kids are not getting recruited, especially by Division IIs, Division IIIs, and low-level Division Is. They're recruiting later now than earlier. All right. So just keep that in mind. And also keep in mind that whatever level it is you think you are, typically kids are getting recruited at a lower level than they were recruited at 15 years ago, just because of the transfer portal and things like that. So again, don't get discouraged with the process if you're not getting the looks or the recruitment right now that you may think you should be getting.
Absolutely. Listen, go check out coachzathletics.com, Kelly College Consulting, TX.com.
Yep.
So listen, what we're all about here is we're all about you guys and not about ourselves. We are doing some different things. Coach Kelly and I are also going. We might see you in person depending on where you guys live. We're doing some seminars Go check out, like I said, coachzathletics.com. You can book a free strategy session with me, kind of help you with navigating your road in the recruitment process. If you guys are kind of not sure what to do, we can, come in and help you dissect that a little bit. Also got a recruiting audit. So listen, if you're already in the recruiting process, Coach Z can come in here and break down everything that you're doing, maybe make some adjustments and put you on the right path that you may need to be redirected to. So listen, we always like to end the podcast this way. It's not about me or Coach Kelly. It's about you guys. We'll see you guys in the next podcast.